Fortnite has had many SMGs throughout its history. Some of them have been insanely overpowered and others have been perfectly balanced. But which SMGs have been the worst in the history of the game? Today, we're going to rank each of them and find out which one of them should never come back to the game and which is the OP meta. Starting with one of the best SMGs in the game, the Compact SMG, also known as the P90, got added to the game during Chapter 1 Season 5. The Compact SMG is one of the most iconic weapons from Fortnite and even has its own Nerf blaster. When this was first added to the game, everyone was talking about how overpowered this gun was because it was really strong due to it being able to shoot incredibly fast with a high damage output. Because it's so strong and iconic, it's going straight into S tier. However, this next SMG is not so lucky because I'm talking about the Combat SMG added in Chapter 2 Season 8. I do not like this SMG at all. It had a crazy fire rate, which, yes, was faster than the Compact SMG, but it also did crazy damage with 22 damage each hit. But what makes the gun so much worse was the insane recoil this gun had. Like if you were to hold down the fire button, you could probably do a backflip from the recoil alone. But jokes aside, the recoil on this weapon was so annoying. Every time you would use it, you would have to aim down like you were playing CSGO or Valorant. But thinking of how broken it is damage-wise, and is one of the most annoying guns to use in the entire game, this gun falls flat down to B tier. And talking about SMGs, this next SMG will be a blast to the past, and that is the original submachine gun. And even though some of you might have some good memories from the past with this SMG, you just can't deny the fact that it sucked. I mean, this SMG did 11 damage per hit. To put into perspective, the Compact SMG does 22. Now, to cut the SMG some slack, it was the first SMG they tried adding to the game, and the others mentioned in this list have been older SMGs to bounce off of, but that still doesn't change the fact that this SMG sucked. It was horrible, but it also did not help that the spread on this gun was just massive. Like if someone were 5 meters away from you and you tried killing them with this SMG, then just good luck, because you might land like 3 shots for a total of 30 damage. This SMG was just horrible. F tier immediately. Contrasting from the bad SMGs, this next one was not as bad as the previous one, the Rapid SMG. This SMG is very good with a really high fire rate of 15 and a reload time of only 1.32 seconds. The gun, however, did not do crazy damage while laying at 17 damage as a legendary, but this was actually good because it created balance. What did drag it down though was the meta. It was introduced in Chapter 2 Season 2, and there was another gun that overshadowed the rapid fire big time, the drum gun. I won't include the drum gun itself in the list because it's more of an AR than an SMG, but for those of you who remember the drum gun, it was an AR and an SMG hybrid. Yeah, you can see how that can ruin the other SMGs in the game at that time. The drum gun was essentially a better SMG with way better range, so due to it being placed really poorly meta-wise, it does fall down to an A tier instead of S. And talking about the higher tiers on the list, this next SMG wishes it could be in the A tier, because up next is the machine pistol. This was sort of just a way worse rapid fire SMG, to be quite honest with you. It had a longer reload speed, a lower fire rate, but slightly better damage. This SMG in itself isn't the worst of all SMGs, but when you look at the other weapons during the meta it was introduced in, the gun falls flat. It went up against the Stinger SMG, which we'll talk more about later, but let's just say the machine pistol versus Stinger is not a fair comparison. This was added in Chapter 3 Season 1, and was around during the time of the MK7 assault rifle, which would shred most people before they even got a chance to come close, and it's my personal favorite weapon. For me, it just doesn't perform good enough when compared to other weapons during its meta. This is an E tier at best. And as mentioned earlier, now we'll talk about the Stinger SMG, added in Chapter 3, Season 1. The Stinger SMG was one of the strongest SMGs in the entire game due to its range, which let it do solid damage even during mid-range encounters. If you were running a machine pistol and you met someone with a Stinger, you were just pushing back the inevitable. It had an alright mag size of 30, relatively fast reload of 2.25 seconds, which was just barely slower than the machine pistol's 2.2 second reload time. It also had a fire rate of 12, which made it relatively fast. Now, this gun literally had to get so many balance changes to make it more fair for other players, but I remember using this gun in matches and it was so fun. Easily an S tier gun, but still under the P90. But this next ranking might shock a lot of you, because up next we have the Twin Mag SMG from Chapter 4 Season 1. This SMG can be explained in one word for me, and that is awkward. The feeling of having 2 mags just felt really awkward for me during fights, and I think a lot of players relate to that as well. Though we have seen worse SMGs, so I'll let this one off with a D tier. And talking about the low tiers, this next SMG is another unlucky one, the Hyper SMG. The The Hyper SMG spiral into one of the worst SMGs is not even its own fault. It's another case of being added into the wrong meta. Because while the Hyper SMG was good, there was a shotgun that obliterated it during Chapter 5 Season 1, that being the Frenzy Auto Shotgun, which was absolutely broken and destroyed the meta for that entire season. Being a shotgun with a fire rate of 2.2, which was and still insane for a shotgun, there was just no way for the poor Hyper SMG to beat it, and for that reason, this SMG goes straight into F tier. Next up is the Charge SMG, released in Chapter 3, Season 3. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to make an SMG charge up though. Comparison is often drawn to the Charge Shotgun, which did really well during certain metas, but its counterpart, the Charge SMG, was even more awkward than the Twin Mag SMG, because while charging it up, I swear you could travel to Egypt and visit the pyramids and come back before this SMG had charged up. F tier. This next one might shock some of you, the Burst SMG. Now, listen, I'm not talking about the one from Chapter 5, because that one is actually really good, but rather the one from Chapter 1. And this was quite honestly one of the weakest and worst SMGs the game has ever had. It was an SMG that fired in 4-round bursts, and it didn't help that it also just had insane recoil, or the fact that it had one of the worst damage falloffs of any SMG. I mean, you would think that you could use a burst weapon in a bit of a longer range, right? But that's just not what Epic Games was thinking when they added this SMG. So for that reason, it falls into yet another F tier. Next up, the Primal SMG was surprisingly good. I know that the Primal season of Fortnite is generally looked down upon, but they did a surprisingly good job at making the Primal SMG not suck in Chapter 2 Season 6. And for that, I'll give it a C tier since there are still many SMGs better than that one. And now onto the Tactical Submachine Gun. Yet another classic that still holds up. This one was added during the first season, fitting very well into the meta with there only being one other SMG for the large part of the chapter. The TAC SMG's recoil is mostly manageable and has an okay mag size of 25, each hit doing a solid 21 damage, all with a reload time of just under 2 seconds. With all that in mind, it was a gun you could easily spray and pray with, being able to reload quickly and go back at it mag after mag. This weapon was especially good considering the building skill at the time. People were still getting used to the building mechanics, which would let you spray down any build and player if you got close enough. I'll give this a solid B tier, because while many modern SMGs outclassed the TAC, it still performed incredibly well when it was around. Next up is the sister SMG to the TAC, the Suppressed Submachine Gun, and let me tell you, this one wasn't great. The only real advantage was the suppressor on it, making it harder for enemies to tell where they were being shot from. The Suppressed SMG had low damage per hit at 19 for the majority of Chapter 1, eventually getting a small buff to 22, but even that couldn't save it from having a slower fire rate than the TAC SMG. A solid pick, all things considered, sure, but with all its flaws in mind, it just has to go in C tier. Moving on to the Harbinger SMG from Chapter 5, Season 2. This was actually a solid SMG. It had a magazine of 30, damage of 21, high fire rate, and extremely low recoil, making it very good at even long-range fights. Not a lot to say about this SMG though. Being a moddable gun, it doesn't have any unique traits of its own, making it not very memorable. That said, it's just a pretty good SMG to have, B tier. In talking about solid SMGs, the Thunderburst SMG, which was added in Chapter 5 Season 1, is the better and improved version of the aforementioned Burst SMG from Chapter 1. Finally, Epic Games made a really good Burst SMG. This one does 29 damage, has a mag size of 27, and a reload time of only around 2 seconds. It's a burst weapon of course, which makes the fire rate harder to judge, but it's still pretty good. Ranking this SMG is actually a bit harder, because you can add weapon modifications, but for the sake of the video, we will not be taking those into account. The Thunderburst SMG does its job. It's a burst weapon that works in mid-range, and it can still be used in close range, but it's a bit less viable than an SMG like the P90. Epic listened to the community and fixed a horrible weapon, making this a strong A-tier weapon. However, this next one is nowhere near as good, and I'm talking about the Makeshift SMG from Chapter 2 Season 6. I think we can all agree that the makeshift weapons in general were not great. Once you got any makeshift weapon, especially the SMG, the first thing you would do is find an upgrade station and turn it into a normal submachine gun, because the accuracy on this SMG was horrible, just horrible. Unless they're right next to you, then I can just wish you good luck, because you're not doing any more than 8 damage to somebody with this. Easy F tier, get out of here. But now for probably the worst SMG in Fortnite history, the moment we have all been waiting for, the Scoped Burst SMG from Chapter 4, Season 4. Yeah, who at Epic Games thought adding a scope to an SMG was a good idea? Because they need to be fired. Jokes aside, you had to hip fire this SMG, because if you use a scope on an SMG, I am 100% sure that you are on some sort of watch list. I mean, with the fire rate of 11.5, I don't even know if you can call this an SMG. It deals 15 damage and is a 4-round thunderburst, and it was going against both the Stinger SMG and Combat SMG, both of which just destroy it in every shape, way, and form. So that is a clear bottom F tier. If you made it this far into the video, you clearly enjoyed it and should drop a sub and check out this video right here, because I bet you don't know who the best Fortnite player is for every season.